disappointing fashion, despite the pretty good record, what have you learned about these teams and about yourself as a coach?
You learn a lot. You learn a lot every year, and I think the thing for us that we've talked to our team about, and we'll continue to, is that every year you have to rebuild, and we're calling them bricks. There's bricks in the foundation, and you won't know how strong that foundation is until the storms come and the big games come down the road. And it's going to be a long season this year, so we're trying to maximize every single day, every meeting, every walkthrough, every practice, because I feel like the right people in the right seats, and that's probably the number one thing overall. If you ask me, like, what have you learned the most? It's making sure you have the right people in the right seats. That started with the players. Then certainly the players coming back. And then it came to adding a few guys in the transfer portal, the recruiting, the coaches, the staff, and then putting all that together to some hard work this off season, which I think the foundation up until this point has been excellent from when it started at the end of the season till now. But preseason is going to be a critical part of this, and it's got to be physical. Guys got to have an edge to them. But this is what everything else is built on. And today's just the first day, but we know it's going to be a long road to the end of the season. But that doesn't mean it changes your approach every day, the urgency that we have to have, and we got to bring it. And so we're going to do everything we can to maximize our team and play really good football down the stretch. But I think when you look at the way that the season is designed at the end of the year, when you're looking at 4 or 5, maybe even 6 games of probably top 10 football back to back to back. And so the only way to be ready for something like that is to train at a high level, challenge ourselves to be really good on both sides of the ball, running the ball, stopping and run, taking care of the football, and then obviously in the passing game you have to be balanced. But we've got to be a physical team, and we've got to be able to travel on the road and play physical football on the road.
Is there a different sense of urgency for you personally?
No, I mean, every year there's urgency. I mean, you don't think it's important, try losing a game at Ohio State. I say that all the time. So it's no different that way, but certainly there's a lot of guys on the team that want to be able to finish the season with some hardware, and that matters.
Guys, we're going to keep it at one question just because I got a lot of people that want to ask questions. 4th row left, Tony Gerben, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, obviously a lot going on, but with the possible move to 105 scholarships, what are you doing right now to plan for that? And could we see a 2025 class of 40 guys?
I mean, that's a pretty high number, but higher than maybe we're used to. Yeah, I think so. We are planning accordingly. I don't think any decisions have been made exactly how that is all going to shake out, but I think that I do believe we need 120 guys going into camp, and how that shakes out during the season, I think needs to be decided. But that 120 number has been around for a long time, and even just being out there in practice today, you saw us go to 2 fields. So every team period of, I guess, 12 to 15 minutes, we were getting 48 plays in, and that matters. Getting young guys reps, and the first 4 days, that's the way we're going to do it. The only way to do that is if you have 120 guys. So I think that's important. But in terms of planning, you're seeing us, add some guys in that maybe in the past, we wouldn't have signed this early. And I think that there's different, almost tiers now. You have certain guys, that are recruited at a certain level, and some other guys, and the best way I can kind of look at it is you kind of have the guys who, in 3 years are probably ready to go look at the NFL and make a decision. 3 guys or 3-year guys, some guys that can make early impacts. Other guys that are a little bit more developmental. It may take a couple of years into the program. Some of those, by the way, have been our best players at Ohio State. So everyone's a little bit different in their journey for whatever reason. We want to bring in a mix of those guys into the program. But our number will be higher, and there will be a little bit more attrition than certainly in the past. So you have to be able to make up for that.
Right next door, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, you're talking about the end of the season. It's almost NFL-like with playoffs and whatnot. How much does it help that you have experience, Chip has experience, other guys have experience, Brian's played in the NFL, just to have that knowledge of what it's like to play in those playoffs and late season games to help in this first year?
Time will tell, but like you said, Tim Walton has been in the NFL for a long time, and you mentioned some of the other guys that have been there before. Certainly Chip's been a head coach in the NFL, and I feel like there'll be a lot of input across the board as we get towards the end of the season and what that means schematically. We've already talked about what that means a little bit in terms of our training and during the season, but you know, I do think, you know, that experience should help because it will be different in how we approach it. But ultimately, you know, football is still football, and I've been saying that too. Like, there has been a lot of changes. When you think about the way that the season's played out, you look at the way that our teams are designed nowadays, you look at even during the game, you have coach-to-player communication, we have tablets on the sidelines, so there's a lot of things that are going on. But the truth is, football's still football. Like, that hasn't changed. And we can't lose focus on that. And that's what being in the preseason's all about. Like, all that other stuff goes to the side, put the football down, and let's see who can play with fundamentals and toughness. And so that's why we don't want to overdo it that way. There's still, you know, so much, you know, of the game that's the same that it's been for 50 years. And that's what we're focused on right now. As we get into the season, you know, we'll make sure we make the adjustments that we think are you know, appropriate.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on Tegra and what he needs to do? He looks like an NFL offensive lineman out there. What does he need to prove to you guys to, you know, seize a starting spot?
Well, I think the first thing is you show that you know what you're doing, you know, and that's the first level of learning. You know, do you know what you're doing? And I know that sounds simple, but like, you have to know your assignment's cold, and there's a lot of preparation that goes with it. I think he's done that. And the second thing is, you know, how to do it, and you know, the technique, you know, the calls. You know, there's so much that comes with you know, how to do your job, and then can you do it consistently over time? Tegra has shown that he can do it. He's shown that he knows what he's doing. The big question is now, after going through this preseason, he's changed his body some. He's had a good season, good off season. Mick's been, you know, the reports have come back good from, you know, Mick does a great job of putting them in tough situations, you know, creating conflict amongst the team, you know, putting them in situations where when they get tired, they have to stay focused. Because we know we're gonna wear teams down this year, win games in the fourth quarter, and if that's our goal, then we have to be able to do that, especially up front with the offensive line. If he can consistently show this preseason that he can do that, he's gonna find himself in games.
Front row, Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports.
Ryan, when and how did you get used to the transactional nature of what the game and your job have become? Money, NIL, agents, everything.
I do think a couple of years in the NFL did help me with that, but it's not the NFL, it's different. There's still so much that comes with it. You know, you still recruit, you don't draft, but you know, there is part of the game that is changing in terms of that, and that's where I go back to, like, every season you almost have to rebuild. You have to rebuild your team, where in the past maybe it wasn't that way, but the way things are designed nowadays, you have to be flexible. And I think the easy thing to do is throw up your hands and say, well, this is just, you know, too much, I don't want to do it anymore. But I've used the analogy before, you know, where I've told this to certain folks, and you know, I did my research about when they built Ohio Stadium 100 years ago, and like at the time, people were like, you gotta be kidding me, like over a 60,000 seat stadium. They thought college football was completely out of control. You know, 100 years later, it's a different way. People are still saying the same type of thing. So I just think, you know, being steady in the boat and coming up with solutions. It's a great time to be a Buckeye. It's a great time to be at Ohio State. You know, we're very well positioned. We've worked hard to be well positioned. We have to continue to be that way and be leaders in this space. You know, we're fortunate to be in a place that can do that.
Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you've been, you talked about before the offseason that the Carson he's had and his development. We didn't see him out there. Just what's the update on?
Who was it?
Carson?
Yeah.
Mhm.
He wasn't here today because of an illness. Usually I get out, but yeah, he was. We held him, came in, checked in, but you know, wasn't feeling right. So trainers decided to hold him today. We expect him to be back out tomorrow.
Bill Landis, the podcast, Kings of the North.
Ryan, we talked so much about Jeremiah this offseason. Mecca's got a body of work, and then day one there's Carnell Payton, who I think's kind of flown under the radar a little bit, making a bunch of plays. What kind of growth have you seen from Carnell, and how is he going to help this offense this year as he steps up in a larger role?
Yeah, I think, again, the limit for Carnell is through the roof. I don't think there is a limit to what he can be. He is not someone that, you know, you typically hear, but you feel out there, you know, and he takes a lot of pride in his route running. He's certainly gifted, but he's very, I think that's the first thing that I recognized when he got here, like a lot of precision in his route running. Takes pride in when he gets out there knowing exactly what he's doing. He comes in well prepared, he's tough, and the guys in the team really like who he is. And he showed last year he could do it. And so, you know, he's gonna have to be a major contributor for our offense this year if we're gonna, you know, do what we wanna do.
Third row middle, Dan Hope, Leaven Warriors.
Ryan, just following up on the scholarships, I think you guys have 5 extra scholarships available for this year. Have you decided what you're gonna do with those scholarships for this year?
Yeah, we've kind of reallocated some of those, so, you know, we are at limit right now. I'm not gonna get into like, you know, how that all played out, but yeah, we ended up getting to the limit and, we allocated some of those out. Yeah.
Third row right, Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Given so much newness in your offense, do you feel more pressed this year to come to a conclusion with that quarterback spot than maybe you did last year, or is it just a matter of, we decided when it's decided, regardless of?
I mean, it has to happen. You know, you can't force it, but yeah, ideally, you know, we'd like to, you know, have someone as a starter and then go into the season and get going with that. So, you know, how that shakes out, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, it happens in the first week to 10 days, but, you know, it's the same thing that happened last year. Like, you know, I'd like for it to happen. It didn't. Even after the first couple of games, I didn't feel like it happened. And then it obviously got to the point, you know, after we won the big game that you know, was appropriate. But, you know, we'll see how it shakes out. And I think all the guys are doing a good job. I think we're gonna need them all, like I said, but, you know, you'd like to have that done in the first couple of weeks.
Second row middle, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
You guys did the split field thing last year too, and you said there were some benefits, there's probably some cons to it as well. Why go with that route again this year with the offensive line trying to run that one, also the quarterback route?
Yeah, I think, like you saw, you know, Simmons and Donnie in the same field together, and then, you know, you'll see, you know, we'll mix and match a little bit, because, you know, that might have to happen during the season. But for the first 4 practices, I think it's a great way to get quarterbacks a lot of reps, get everybody out there, get moving around, and you're getting 48 reps in a shorter period of time. So it's a great way to get everybody moving around, and you know, first 2 practices, we're not in, you know, we're not in pads anyways, so it's really hard to identify what's going on with the offensive line when you're not pads on. I mean, you know, you can go in the right direction, but there's very little contact. It's all hands and feet. So, you know, more importantly, we're getting reps for the quarterback, we're getting reps for everybody on the team in a shorter period of time, a little bit more efficient. Like you said, I mean, I guess the negative would be you're not always going to go against the one on the other side, but we have the rest of the camp for that. We have 25 practices.
Fourth row right, Spencer Holbrook.